Learn how it affects your development. LaBiTale with Dr. Martha J. every Sunday at 5:30 p.m. You are tuned in to LaBiTale, Habits That Count with Dr. Martha J.
It is now 29 minutes after 5 o'clock. We go over to Dr. Martha Joseph for the scheduled program LaBiTale.
Pleasant good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of LaBiTale, Habits That Count. It's a place where we examine issues and concerns, where we identify practices and concerns, and we identify habits that we can implement to fix them or to, remedy whatever the situation is. I am your host, Dr. Martha J. And today with me, I have Mrs. Mara Lando, who is going to be with us. But before that, I just want to remind you of our sponsors. Our sponsors for this week are Leonard Taxis from St. Thomas, Hilltop Renovations in St. Thomas, Rainbow Construction in Dominica, and Budding Writers Academy. Wherever you listen, DBS Radio, you can listen live, you can listen via Facebook, you can listen via iTunes, TuneIn, You can also listen on YouTube and Facebook, or you can listen locally via your wavelength. So go ahead and listen, whether you're listening locally or you're listening on the Caribbean, welcome. For those of you locally, you want to call, the number to call is 448-3284 or 1-800-327, or internationally, you can call 305-432-944. And by the way, locally today, we are giving away an Android that complements Mr. and Mistress Lando. They're going to provide one local lucky winner is going to win an Android today. So this week, we're continuing our last month's conversation on electronic devices. Last time we dealt with ages 1 through 4, and today we are dealing with school age. That's grades 5 and up, early grades, middle grades, and of course, high school grades. So to discuss with us, we have Mara Lando. She is a licensed clinical professional counselor. She's a certified case manager. She is also an integrated dual diagnosis treatment specialist. She deals with behavioral issues. And she, of course, is a daughter of the soil. Last time, somebody said to me, you didn't even say that she was from Dominica. Yes, she is from Dominica. She is a combination of Point Michelle and Daly's, and she is my niece, of course. So today we have Mara Lando, who is we're going to ask Mara to introduce herself. Mara, can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me on, LaBiTale, Dr. Joseph. I am a behavioral health clinician here in Chicago from Dominica, like just mentioned. And my background and expertise is in mental health and behavioral health. I thoroughly enjoy early childhood development, all things behavioral, all things mental health.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're really happy to have you. And we know that the issue of electronic devices is an issue that everyone faces, whether you're a parent, a grandparent, or even a teacher, or just a caretaker with kids. We know that we see, parents struggling with that issue. So today, I wanted to recap. Tell us again what we mean when we say electronic devices. And of course, tell us what is the ideal for each grade level or each age, actually, because I know as a behavioral clinician, you deal more with age rather than grade. So go ahead and share with us what we mean by electronic devices and what is the ideal.
Yeah, so for this purpose, the electronic devices that we're referring to Will it be including computers, television, mobile devices? That includes cell phones, tablets, all of those things. You will be talking mainly about or age groups from 5 over to early teens, 17, those ages. Research estimates on average children between 0 to 8 have about 2.5 hours of screen time per day, and 8 to 10-year-olds have 6 hours a day. 11 to 14-year-olds have 9 hours, or they consume 9 hours a day, and 15 to 18-year-olds about 7.5 hours a day. So those numbers are really staggering. And that does not include screen times in front of computer, of course, because at school, they're utilizing computers and they're utilizing screen times. That does not include that.
Okay, so hold on, for clarification. Are you saying that is what they should have, or that's what the research is stating that they are now experiencing?
Yes, that's right. That's what research is saying, that they currently, that's the amount of hours that they're currently utilizing. But as a guideline to follow, the American Academy for Pediatrics ideally recommends a maximum of 2 hours per day for children 5 to 17. So this is what it's recommended. Yes,
5 to 17, 2 hours a day.
You should. This is what you should be having according to the American Academy for Pediatrics. You should be having up to 2 hours a day. But as I just mentioned, those numbers are staggering. You're seeing way longer screen time than that.
But you know what? I'm wondering if they're thinking of school as well. Maybe they're thinking of screen time as far as like gaming, maybe? Is that what they mean?
Screen time, home time at home,
So at home,
right,
okay.
So you're at home, you're done with, those classes, you're home. You should be, school finishes like what, 3 o'clock?
Yeah, they have 6 hours at school, yeah.
From that time until your bedtime, you should be having 2 hours, no more.
Well, I'm gonna laugh because I know that's a joke.
It's a push.
It's really far from reality. I know that, but that's the suggestion. Okay, I'm gonna respect that. All right. Okay, so what are the best practices for parents listening right now? They have those students who are school age, means they're in kindergarten, all the way through second, all the way through grades 3 to 5. I think you had them by ages. So we can say 5 through 8, and then 9 through early teens. Okay, so tell parents what are the best practices. Your child come home from school, they've had 6 hours at school, and now, according to the CDC, they have 2 hours. I don't know how that's gonna work, but I'm not gonna question their judgment. What's the best practices for parents on how to navigate those 2 hours with their students during school weekdays? Okay, I'm gonna say school days. Go ahead.
Right. So again, right, so screen time, and I just want to touch on this real quick. In itself, it's not a bad thing, right? When used appropriately, it can be an educational success and positive in many ways. It has also become part of our society, and it's important that we adjust to aspects in society as technology grows. So it helps with development. It helps with development of new skills, whether creative thinking skills, problem solving skills, digital skills. Those are all valuable things, but we want to be age appropriate, good quality media. So for example, screen time activities that involves critical or creative thinking can help challenge a child's mind, right? A digital skill may include a child producing content rather than just consuming examples, rather than just consuming. So that would be like using the tablet or the computer to maybe write stories, create music, and so forth. So those are all valuable things that we can use. We live in the digital world, and it's beneficial to learn those skills. So they can learn those skills through screen time.
Awesome.
And, right. As far as helping your child get the most of the screen time, so we want to make use of educational apps. So encourage screen time for educational purposes. Age-appropriate, interactive, engaging learning apps makes learning fun, makes learning accessible. Regardless of, or even the age groups from 5 up, you can do things like play educational games with your child, gauge what they're soaking in. And the American Psychological Association report that video games improve hand-eye coordination, strengthen cognitive skills such as reasoning, memory, perception, develop problem-solving skills. Where else can I say?
So that's for the gamers. So they're saying that the gamers, they can develop hand-eye coordination, problem-solving skills. What else?
For gamers. So you can hand-eye coordination, problem-solving skills. What was the last thing that I just said? Cognitive skills. Did I mention
cognitive skills? Yes, it's
right.
Cognitive skills.
Reasoning, right. It will help memory, perception. Yeah.
Okay.
So it will do all of that.
Awesome. So in other words, gaming is not all bad. Gaming, there are good things that can come out of gaming. You can develop hand-eye coordination. You can develop reasoning skills. You can develop cognitive skills.
Yes.
Okay, got it. I got you.
Right. And it's really important that parents use these benefits, the screen time benefits, to their advantage. And one of the ways sort of to help parent gauge in choosing what is right for the child, regardless of the age, what's the right programs, what's the right recommendations. Experts recommend following the 3 C's. So that is context, content, and child. And just for parents to know, context in itself is referring to what is the purpose of this screen time activity? What will my child learn from this activity? And the content encourages parents to choose digital media and activities carefully. So you'll ask yourself, what exactly is my child watching or playing or utilizing right now, right? And then that child aspect, as a parent, ask yourself, is whatever I'm allowing my child to see, to view, to use, to play, or that digital activity should generate talk time rather than replace talk time, right?
Okay.
So how do I ensure that my child's use in technology in ways that enrich or deepen knowledge skills and not just simply passing time? So discuss with your child what you learned, how you're going to apply it, and so forth.
Well, I am guilty. I had my nephews for the past 2 days, and of course I said to them, okay, you have 1 hour on your iPads. I did not do any of the things that you asked me to do today. I did not look for context. I did not look for content, and I did not have a conversation with them after. And here, I'm not going to make an excuse. It's just that there were some games that they normally play. So I figured, since they're going to be with me just for 1-2 days, that their parents probably already approved it. So I made an assumption, which is always wrong, that the context was right, that the content was appropriate. And of course, the last C, which is to have a conversation with them as a child, I did not have that at all. And so you are telling me, as a caretaker that's going to have my nephews temporarily a day or 2, that I need to pay attention to making sure I know what is the context. Why are they on that particular game or screen time at that time? What are they doing? Are they looking at science something? Are they looking at a game? Is it a game that can improve their cognitive development? Or is it something that's aggressive? What is the content? So the context and the content. And then I should be able to have a conversation with them after and say, okay, guys, you want the game for 30 minutes or 1 hour. Now I need you to share with me what you learned, what were you able to solve. And I know that some of those games do have problem solving things going on, because I've had opportunities to sit next to them and even try to play as well. So I want parents listening to remember that. If your child, we're not saying your child cannot be on the game. What we are saying is be sure that you're paying attention to, do you know the context?
Right.
Do you know the content? and make sure you have a conversation after so that you know exactly what's going on.
Right.
Beautiful. Guess what? I learned something. I'm gonna repent. I'm gonna repent of my past failures. Okay.
Always
talk
make
to
sure
us.
you know what your child is consuming. That is so very important. That's probably the number one thing, because like you mentioned, sometimes kids could be a little sneaky. They could be.
They are. Trust me. I saw
They
that.
could
Yep.
be sneaky.
I saw their sneakiness. Yep.
So you want to make sure that, and that's where, another topic for later, or something that we'll discuss later, is parental controls too. You just want to make sure you're tracking, exactly what they're doing, what exactly how long for, you have to prove everything that your child is doing.
So tell me, Auntie brought that up. How can we do that? Give parents at least one or two ways, ideas. Even me as a how would I call it? A temporary caretaker in times. How can I know that? How can I monitor that? How can I do that? Because I remember last week you told that to us. Make sure that we can monitor what the child is doing. So you gave us the benefits. You gave us the 3 C's we should pay attention to. Now give us some guidance as to how we can monitor that child, because these kids are sneaky. They can show me that they're looking at something, and as soon as I turn my back, they can pull up that new window. So how can I monitor that as a parent who's not really just taking care of people's kids? Talk to us.
So, we can have a peace of mind. Parents can have a peace of mind. We should have a peace of mind as to what our child is consuming, right? And setting boundaries and implementing parental control. So that is going to be the number one thing that you're going to need as a parent, a caregiver, and an uncle, anyone who's going to be looking after your child, and you have, you're going to allow them to have screen time. You want to make sure that you're aware what parental controls are and how to use it. So there's a few of them that I have been suggesting. There's a few apps. One of them, Custodio, for example, it's available on both Android and Apple devices. It's a parental control app, and it offers features such as screen time management. So if you want your child to be on the tablet for an hour, let's just say it's a weekend, you want an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, or if you're not following the guidelines and you set whatever you set for your child, you set 3 hours for your child a day, 4 hours for a child a day, whatever you choose, you want to use an app that is going to track that screen time. And after, like, for example, after the 1 hour is done in the morning, or the 2 hours or the 3 hours, then it will lock and it will prevent use. And then that child would likely have to come to you for approval. So there's the screen time management, there's the app blocking too, because kids, they're really tech savvy. Remember, we live in a world where this is their time, tech, everything tech. So they will go to look for in the app store and try to download specific apps. You want to protect your child, right? So having this app, it will prevent you, or prevent the child, once you have your parental control in place, it will prevent them from going ahead and just downloading whatever app that they choose.
And what is the name of that one?
This one is Custodio. There's a few of them. There's Custodio. There's more. And if anyone, of course, is interested in using for their kids, we can always provide later or after. So it also filters websites. So anything that may have anything inappropriate, once the child goes on it, it will prevent them. That page will not show up. It also tracks location. So if your child has it and let's just say you're at the park, probably you shouldn't be at the park with the iPad, but let's just say if you're at the park or wherever you are, you can track, or if you give your child, if you chose to give your child what is an early teen, a teenager, a phone, you can always track that device. So it does that too. It also it monitors social media. It will provide you at the end of the day, whenever you want that report, it will provide you an activity report too. Allows parents to set specific limits. So if you realize, hey, my kid is using this or tried this, and I want to set specific limits or
Mhm.
specific categories, you can do that too. So that's a pretty great thing. And it's not the only app, but that's one of the things that these apps that have parental controls do. And also in the Apple setting, in the settings for both Android and Apple, you can go through and you can implement just basic parental control too.
Wow. So I like Custodial because it's giving so many different options. I'm
Right.
blocking the app, tracking your screen time,
Yeah.
and location, and yeah, I think that's multiple. So we will put those again in on Facebook, and when we do the podcast version, we will put it so that people can remember what. But Custodial, for those of you parents, remember Custodial is a good app to download to make sure that you can support your child. You don't want to put them on, no screen time, but you don't want them to be over. So that takes us, Mara, to what about for those of us what happens when we lost control? I went away for a week. I left my child with somebody else. And so that person decided, well, I'm just going to leave them on the iPad for as long as I want them to be quiet. And so I gave them an opportunity to be on there for maybe 6 hours at a time. And now my child I have a problem.
Right.
Or some parents who probably didn't know better before, and they just allowed their kids to be on there for as long as they wanted, particularly the teenage ones when they get hooked onto those video games. Tell us something about what happens when we've lost control.
Yeah. So when excessive use come into play, where children are spending countless hours on screen, that's when we see a problem. So we mentioned earlier that just the screen time in itself is not bad. It's actually positive. It's great. But when you experience that excess, when that child is having that excess, that's when the issue comes in. So in addition to many things that it affects, like increased screen time is less reading time, all of these, children need building language and development, that's going to be hindered. So in addition to all of that, something else that's been concerning is that the overuse can in fact lead to social isolation as well as depression and anxiety.
Wow.
So they replace face-to-face interaction with digital devices. They miss out on essential social skills and critical emotional cues for their development. So in other terms, choosing to sit behind a screen and play video games or aimlessly browsing with no purpose, just watching pointless programming, hinders that face-to-face communication when prolonged. I know you mentioned that, it just happens for a little time, but, some parents, they, like you said, they don't know better. So these things happen prolonged, and it affects their mood and their self-esteem tremendously. So even at young age, we see rising in comparisons, particularly if these early teens, these preteens, teens are on, social media where so many things are not real or accurate, then they start to compare, and you see a rise in different things like eating disorders. So many, it's just another topic for another day. But
Yes.
yeah. But then something that I didn't get to touch on last time that I think is very important is that when these excessive numbers occur, and it affects a part of the brain. So let's see how it's affected. This dopamine, a lot of us have heard of dopamine. It's a feel-good chemical that the brain releases, right? So we all have it, we all experience it, we thrive from dopamine. It plays a role as a reward center in the brain. So it's designed to reward us when we're doing things that we need to survive. And as humans, our brains are essentially hardwired to seek out behaviors that release dopamine. So, it makes us feel good, right? In our reward system. So when we're doing something pleasurable, that our brain will start to release large amounts of dopamine. You feel great. You will tend to seek more of that feeling. Imagine a child. Screen time itself, that number of screen time that they're consuming, all that lights, all that details, it releases dopamine. So the more that they're getting that on a regular basis, so I'm getting 2-3 hours of dopamine, I love what I'm consuming. And it's not just children, so adults experience this too. But of course, children, their brains are a lot less mature and a lot more tender than adults at this point. So just to focus on that,
Mhm.
they will, when they're getting this, all of this on a regular basis, it's more they require needing, wanting to get that same feel good high.
Feeling. Mhm.
Right. So they're going to need more and more and more. Then they'll require,
Mm.
right. So brain scans, or I'll just retouch back again. So after you're getting those 2 hours and you feel great, and then it goes up to 3 hours, it feels great. That 2 hours, when they get that 2 hours on Saturday, it's not going to do anything for them again. They're going to want an additional hour.
Additional hour.
Enjoying what they're receiving, right? They're enjoying what they're soaking in.
Mhm.
And brain scans comparison of those who play excessive video games or those with excessive screen times of more than 20 hours a week shows similar to those who are addicted to drugs and alcohol. So just
Wow.
that recreational drugs also overstimulate the brain's reward system. And then the reward system gets less sensitive, right? So that's what happens when you consume cocaine, marijuana, whatever it is, particularly like the hardest substances like cocaine.
Mm.
It touches into that part of the brain that it just overstimulates that reward system. And then you will be needing more to feel that same high that you did
Last
before.
time.
Right.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is what we're seeing in brains of children or brains of children who are consuming those excessive screen time, of teens, children, and children who are excessive, who are, receiving that excessive gaming screen time too, because you're stimulating, overstimulating the dopamine in the brain. Right.
Wow.
So they don't, after a while, when that happens, you don't have the same feeling of pleasure from anything else except for that drug. So this is for the addict. And you just keep wanting more. So in turn, you need large amounts, like I mentioned. And same goes for the kids. They become more sensitive to the feelings of withdrawal, such as anxiety and irritability. So you will start to see them maybe having some depression or some anxiety, some changes in the mood. And you see a lot of that tantrums too, like just not knowing, I remember being on an airline and the mom took away the cell phones. There was a toddler. She looked like she was probably 4 or 5. And she was playing on the phone the whole time. The mom took away the cell phone because she just wanted to do something simple as take a picture. Soon as she did that, the entire airline heard of the commotion because she took away what was feeding that excitement. So this is it's a huge problem that's happening that parents need to be aware of, not just the caregivers, right? We have to be aware of how the brain works and how it affects. So then, you see that latch tantrums, you see the depression, you see the anxiety, all because they need that screen time,
And I really want parents to take that seriously, because I spoke to a medical doctor recently, and then she told me that they were seeing an increase in their clinic of teenagers coming with, being addicted to things that were not games. They were getting involved in drugs and alcohol, and there's a correlation. They were able to look at the correlation between that excessive interaction with gaming. And and I'm learning that for the first, well, not the first time, but I'm learning that now more and more when I speak to you. So because of that dopamine release and that excitement, that feeling of pleasure, if they need more each time, and it's like a high, and if the game doesn't do it anymore, then they find themselves wanting the other one. So I really want parents to take that seriously, because it is a problem that is being cited in clinics already, where teenagers are showing up with those everything that Mara just explained, those either depression or withdrawal symptoms, all of those things that relate to alcohol, and even getting involved in early use of drugs and alcohol.
Right, that's right. It wasn't so for mental health. There's any diagnosis that happens in the mental health world, we look to the DSM-5. So that is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for mental health clinicians like myself. And that was not, there was we're now in the 5th edition, which came out, I think, in 2010 or 2011, somewhere around there. But before that, internet addiction was not in the previous, it was not in the previous edition. It became an issue later on where they had to include internet gaming disorder because it's an actual disorder that affects many people, many teens, where you cannot function well outside of being stuck in that world, that digital world, right? And then, like you say, then there becomes a correlation of other things, because at this point you've affected that part of it. You've reached so high in wanting so much dopamine that other parts of your, you tend to have more of that seeking behavior.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I never like to leave parents on a down note. I want you to just go ahead and share some practices that they can utilize to ensure that they can make sure that their children are not going to get to that space. And if their children are already in that place, how can we help them? So what are some things you can, I know we did it last time, but I wanted to reiterate to parents, what are some things you can do to ensure that your child is interacting properly with internet?
So I want to encourage, number one, digital literacy. That is so important, very, very important. Technology is becoming increasingly present in our lives, all of us, and parents need to ensure that each and every one of their children have that digital literacy skills to safely navigate. So digital literacy is about knowing how to use technology safely and responsibly. Yes. So you have to equip your child with the skills they need to use the technology that they have and they're getting routinely safely. There's dangers online. Have an open discussion, like even in layman terms with your child, about how excessive screen time is going to affect them, or there's a possibility of it will affect them. Include different things. Before I get to including different things, there's online predators. You want to educate your kids about that too. Misinformation. So just have a lot of that conversation with your children, no matter what age, and just let them know again how this can affect them. I completely lost my other train of thought, what I was going to say, but yeah,
definitely. So what I will do is just reiterate what you said last time, of course, because it's the same thing. You want them to reduce. If they are over excess, just reduce it. And when you reduce, make sure you replace. And then make sure you find time to interact. So Mrs. Lando said earlier, the 3 C's. So what is the context? Is it because of social studies? Is it because of science? Is it because of just a game? What's the context? Why are they on that screen time? Then what is the content? What are they learning? And then, of course, what is that child interaction you're going to have? What are those questions you're going to ask them? What was the game about? Did you learn anything? Who did what? What did you help solve? You want to be able to ask. And sometimes it's better to let students know in advance what you're going to be finding out. Okay, you're going to have 15 minutes on, say, RAS Kids, which is a reading program. At the end of it, I want you to be able to tell me about the story you read. So if you tell them in advance, then that interact moment, or that C that Mrs. Lando told you about, which is the child interaction, will be easier. So if a child already has it before they start what's expected, then it's going to be a lot more productive. And of course, she says parental control. She told you to utilize custodial. And then set limits. Make sure you can set your limits. Don't just let them go on for 6 hours because it's the weekend. Put 1 hour a day at a time, or 15 minutes or 30 minutes, depending on the age limit. And with custodial, it will help you to put your time limits. It will help you to check to see whether they're sneaking and going on other apps. It will check to see if they're someplace that they're not supposed to be. And it will do all of those things for you. So that's a good one. And of course, she wants you to educate your child on child literacy. Digital literacy really talks about how you can read, evaluate, communicate, and of course, using media. And digital citizenship pretty much is how you behave online. Do you know how to do certain things? Do you know how to respect people online? Do you know how to be safe? Do you know how to stay ahead? If somebody's asking you for something online, tell a parent. Do your kids know those things? So you need to be able to, and that's a whole other topic that we will find somebody to talk about, digital literacy and digital citizenship, because these are two great topics that people need to know. It's just like being a citizen on the planet. You need to know how to behave, how to be respectful to others. So we come to the end of our half hour. It has happened so quickly. Mrs. Lando, give us your final words. Tell parents anything you want to tell them before we conclude.
Thank you again. There's always hope. Don't give up. Just try, research, seek out help. If you do, have a child and you really don't know what to do as far as like what they're going through with their excessive use. If you do have a doctor to suggest talking to your pediatrician, they can always provide some input too. And, know that we're doing as best as we can. And we do, given the resources that we have, I always think that, and just continue to do your best. And yes, good luck.
Thank you very much again for being here. And parents, you can always find an extended version on podcasting. And I will share with you the other suggestions that Mrs. Larrock has, Mrs. Lando has on parental control. And I'll put that up for you. But meanwhile, I want to say thank you so much for your listen. Next week, we will be talking about youth skills development, and we will have with us someone from Chicago Youth Skills area, and of course, Dominica, our Youth Development Division. We'll have somebody representing, and we will have a good conversation on skills development, and of course, some practices we can utilize to make sure that we improve our economy. Until such time, I want to say to you that you've been listening to LaBiTIL, Habits That Count with Dr. Martha J. Thank you very much. Today, your guest was Mrs. Lamara Lando, and she dealt with electronic devices. Until next time, I want to say to you, keep pressing, be kind to somebody, and plant a seed. It will grow. Thank you again for your listen. Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it. 5 minutes after 6 o'clock, you've been